I think one has to be careful and wait for all the facts to be in. It's clear there was intense combat in the immediate vicinity of the UN compound. It was clear that there was very, as I say, intense fighting. It's not clear whose shells, whose fire hit the UN facility. It could have been ours, it could have been Hamas's. This is being investigated. I can tell you very authoritatively that every Israeli soldier going into combat knows, it's part of his orders, that we do not target UN facilities, we do not target UN personnel. With Hamas, as you know, it's very different. Hamas deliberately has a policy of abusing UN facilities and turning them into human shields for their military purposes.
Spokesperson for the UN Relief and Works Agency known as UNRWA. Can you give us the latest? Yesterday we spoke to you when news was just breaking about 2 schools hit by Israeli fire in Gaza. What do you understand at this point, Christopher Gunnis?
Well, at the Jabalia school, we have done an initial investigation into what took place. We are 99.9% certain there were no militants in the school or the compound. There was no militant activity in the school or in the school compound. If anybody, including the Israeli army, anybody has any evidence that there were people abusing our premises, we want to know, we want to find out what went on. It's in our interest to make sure that militants do not abuse our facilities, but we're 99.9% certain that yesterday there were no militants and no militant activity. And there is some question from the Israeli army about was this activity in the vicinity of the compound or in the compound? And that's more clarification that we need, because if it was in the streets outside, that of course is different from if they were in the compound itself.
So tell us who was in the school, what is the casualty figure you have at this point?
Well, first of all, for the attack at Jabalia, we said yesterday 30 confirmed fatalities and 55 injured, including 15 critically. Very sadly, overnight, 10 people passed away. The fatality figure has now risen from 30 to 40. The people in the compound, over 1,300.
Well, the United Nations already seem to be pretty clear about who hit their facility. They say that phosphorus shells were fired into the UN compound. What do you say about that?
First of all, about phosphorus shells. First of all, Hamas has used phosphorus shells against Israelis. Let's be clear about that. And there was a lot of stuff out there a day or two ago about Israel using phosphorus shells illegally. I would point you to the statement put out yesterday by the International Committee of the Red Cross that said that after looking into this issue, they found no wrongdoing whatsoever on Israel's part. Sorry.
Okay.
Hundreds of kids, women and children have been brought to this hospital for medical treatment. Doctors are struggling here to cope with the situation. We have seen as many as 900 people are being treated in that hospital. The doctors are talking about running out of medicine. Every essential medication is being a heavy shortage here in Gaza, as well as blood. Israelis keep saying that they are not targeting civilians, they are targeting Hamas. From your point of view as a foreigner, how can you answer this question?
I would say it's an absolutely stupid statement. We know among all the hundreds we have seen so far, we have seen 2 fighters. The statistics are clear. Among the 2,500 injured, 45% are women and children. And then there are also all the civilian men. So the large majority of the injured, the victims, are women, men and children, civilian. Among the killed, 25% of the killed are children and women. And among the children, this morning, it was 801 children either killed or injured. 101 children have been killed. So these numbers are contradictory to everything the Israelis.
Is there enough supplies?
And there was a lot of stuff out there a day or two ago about Israel using phosphorus shells illegally. I would point you to the statement put out yesterday by the International Committee of the Red Cross that said that after looking into this issue, they found no wrongdoing whatsoever on Israel's part.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what could you please tell us about the findings about the uranium?
The findings about the uranium I cannot tell you much about, but I can tell you that we have clear evidence that the Israelis are using a new type of very high explosive weapons, which are called dense inert metal explosives, which is made out of a tungsten alloy. These weapons have an enormous power to explode. The power of the explosion dissipates very quickly. The strength does not travel long, maybe 10 meters. But those humans who are hit by this explosion, this pressure wave, are cut in pieces. This was first time used in Lebanon in 2006. It was used here in Gaza in 2006. And the injuries that we see in Shifa now, many of them, I suspect, and we all suspect, are the effect of dime weapons used by the Israelis. On the long term, these weapons will have a cancer effect on those who survive. They will develop cancer, we suspect. It has been very little research on this, but some research has been done, among other places in the United States, which show that these weapons have a very high tendency to develop cancer. So they kill, and those who survive risk having cancer.
There, the UN are saying that they have heard that the general neighbourhood that they were in was under attack all night. They say they made repeated calls to you to call off the attack. Were you aware of those calls?
You know, a UN facility, it doesn't go back to yesterday or the day before. We have very good coordination with the United Nations. We know exactly where their facilities are.